Hello everybody, and welcome to the latest Nintex workflow webinar. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking more about business and less about the product itself. We're going to look at how business process automation in general can help you in the human resources department and improve life for your business. Just before we get started though, a little bit of housekeeping. Right now the majority of you will be joined over VoIP, but if you do get disconnected or you decide to call in over a phone line, you can use the numbers that you see here on the left for the region that you're calling from. And just jot down the number and the access code that you see there on the right in case you do need to dial in. You'll have this information in your calendar request that you would have received with the invitation, but if you don't have Outlook or if you don't have it handy, then maybe just quickly jot it down. Also, as usual, you can pose questions along the way as well. You'll see a little upraised hand button on the upper left of the panel in the GoToMeeting control. Just click that button, type in any questions you have along the way, and I'll receive those in my log and address as many as I can with whatever time we have left at the end of the session. If you don't get your question answered during this webinar, then when you log out, you'll be presented with a form that you can fill out if you'd like. It's not mandatory, but there are some fields there that you can use to pose any questions that you thought of during the webinar that weren't answered, or any additional ones that you might think of along the way. We're going to talk today about the kinds of things that are motivating us to streamline human resources, the kinds of requirements and goals that we have in our business, and specifically within the HR department, that we can address with business process automation. And specifically, we're going to look at three in particular. The first will be onboarding, or the process that a company and an employee goes through when somebody new is hired, and also the evaluations and departure processes that are often attached to that onboarding scenario. We'll also look at expense claims, another very common, very popular process within the HR department. And finally, as an example of a high volume process or workflow that we can address, we'll look at leave requests as well. So first off, what is motivating us to streamline the HR department? What are the kinds of things that we're trying to achieve? Well, first of all, there's a fair amount of cost and risk associated with people joining the company. It takes a lot of effort and expense to find an employee, to bring him or her on in the company, to add all of the assets that that employee needs to the business, such as their IT assets and various records and financial data. And we don't want those employees to leave. Most employees decide whether or not they want to stay with the company within the first 9 months of their employment. And making sure that they get the attention that they require minimizes the risk that they'll decide to leave. And it makes them more motivated and more capable as well. There's also some risks associated with departures that I'll talk about in a little bit more detail as well. We've got visibility into and control over expense claims as another key motivator in our HR department. We've got governance and compliance that we want to adhere to, and we'd like all of these processes to be able to access other data within our business as well, so that the decisions that we automate and the information that we offer the people that are participating in these processes are as pertinent and as valuable as possible. And all of this, of course, means higher efficiency and lower costs, less of a paper footprint, and getting easier approval to implement these kinds of solutions. because of the fact that it actually saves money. It makes getting all of these solutions into your department a lot easier if the bottom line is a good one. So what do we do when we onboard an employee? Well, some of the pains involved are the hiring and training costs. We talked a little bit about those already briefly. We want to reduce those. We also want to make sure that we maintain compliancy and governance. And a good example of the kind of governance and compliancy that we're concerned with is the regular employee reviews and the probationary reviews that employees receive when they join a business. And this practice could be dictated by legislative governance. It could be coming from the government, or it could be an internal practice that you set within the company. One of the benefits of maintaining this compliancy is that if, in the worst case, an employee leaves or is dismissed under, let's say, challenging circumstances. I've heard a number of our customers and partners in the field talk about situations where employees in that situation challenge the decision made by the company and even sue for wrongful dismissal for a number of reasons, and one of them being that they missed a particular review or a bit of training or something that they were entitled to as part of the employee practice or even government standards, and it gives them an opportunity to push back on the decision that was made. So making sure that you adhere to those kinds of standards is good for the employee. It makes sure that they get the attention they need. It keeps you on track. And it also reduces the risk of those kinds of unsavory situations happening in the future. So how do we fix all that? Well, first of all, we want to reduce the amount of man-hours required in the hiring and training process. That's what's going to reduce the cost and effort required. And we do that, of course, by automating a lot of it. And when we automate it, we're also able to ensure that we adhere to those standards. We do things like scheduling employee reviews automatically after people have joined the company or while they're in the process of joining the company. Pretty much any standard that you have to follow can be enforced either through reminders or simple checklists that need to be completed online before the process continues. And giving those employees better early training and regular employee reviews reduces the risk that they'll leave in those early stages or that there'll be any kind of difficult circumstance associated with their departure. This is what it might look like in a SharePoint environment. We have a centralized list where as each new employee joins the company, their information is stored and updated there. And it can be as detailed or as general as you want. And as that first batch of information is input into that centralized list, it can be synchronized with other systems on the network as well. So for example, if you had a finance system that stored the employee's banking details and their leave balance and various other information, that could be populated by this list as well. And this list could also pull information from systems like that. So the key thing to take away here is that having it all in one place is great, and it can become your single source of truth, as it were. Of course, as each new employee is entered in the list, the business processes required to get them started kick off automatically. And these are some of the things that we might provision for them as they start. They're going to need network permissions so that they can do their job using the company network and all of its assets. They're going to need an email inbox and an account, a login to use it. We can set that up for them as well. We'll probably requisition computer hardware and a workstation, stationery. We'll arrange all of that to be set up for them before they arrive. And we might send them by post or by email or even have it sitting on their desk when they arrive, an employee handbook from the HR department, telling them a little bit about what life is like in the business and getting them off to a good start. And when they do start, they'll already have meetings scheduled with their manager to make sure that they get the attention they need and are coached a little bit along the way. Nintex is a perfect example of how this works. When I started at Nintex, I had already received by post a welcome pack with the HR handbook telling me about the company and various other little motivational items like shirts and whatnot. And when I arrived at my desk, all my equipment was there ready for me. I had a username and a password. I was logging into my email. I had meetings scheduled. Everything was set up for me already. And that kind of impression being made on the employee has a huge effect on how they approach their job and how they feel about management. It makes them more motivated and capable as well. At the end of all this provisioning, once the person has everything that they need and they're going along, they'll also have a probationary review scheduled at the end of whatever period the company uses, whether it's 3 months or 6 months. The manager that will be conducting the review starts to get notified 2 or 3 weeks before the review takes place. And they're reminded that a form or document, a review document, needs to be filled out as part of the process. And it's only when that document has been submitted to the library that the system considers the process complete, and it goes ahead and it schedules another review. If it were a probationary review that were completed, then the next review to be scheduled would be a regular annual review. And in this way, we fulfill the compliance requirement as well. We know that nothing is going to be missed. We have a nice library of all of the past reviews, and we also have a record that these reviews are taking place and that due diligence is being followed. Expense claims. Some of the pains that we have in the expense claims field are, one is a lack of visibility into ongoing expenditures. If we don't have an automated, standardized process for expense claims, then it's pretty hard to figure out and analyze where the money is going, to which department, and claimed by whom, perhaps what kind of claimant behavior is being seen by the managers themselves. Are they just approving everything? Are they approving stuff that is a little bit more expensive than we would have liked? We also want as much control as possible over these claims. It's good if you have managers that are approving things as they come through and using their best judgment, but it's even better if you can enforce a review and action process for each claim so that managers have to review a claim before they can approve it, and that review and that claim is recorded. It makes the managers responsible, and it makes the claimants responsible as well. Without that kind of system in place, it's very hard to make sure that everybody's following the standard practices that the company would like. And of course, maximum claims for a given manager at a given time, maximum claims for a given department over a given financial quarter, for example. These are common examples of standards that we might want to follow. Another one might be contractual obligations we might have with suppliers. Maybe we have a contract with a stationery supplier so that all of the stationery we order comes from them. But if a manager doesn't know that, then they might approve a claim for stationery that was purchased somewhere else. That's the kind of thing that we can enforce and automate fairly easily with these kinds of SharePoint tools. So how are we going to address all this? Well, first, we're going to store each expense claim electronically for future reference and analysis. Because it's in a list and that list gets populated automatically with each new claim, it's very easy to analyze historically what's going on in the department. We're also going to require evaluation and approval for each one of those claims. The claims don't go forward until the manager has read a little bit of detail on it and has clicked approve. So we know at the very least they're seeing the approvals, or I should say they're seeing the claims and they're evaluating them on a case-by-case basis. And finally, the same automation will be able to enforce the company policy itself. So we can build in a little bit of intelligence where the system might look to see how much has been claimed in a given department for a given period before the manager is notified, or the claim itself might be rejected because it doesn't meet certain standards, like it hasn't been ordered from the proper supplier, or it hasn't been applied to the proper department. These are the kinds of standards that we can enforce pretty easily with this kind of thing. Again, it looks similar to the previous solution. It's based on a SharePoint list and library. Users are putting through very simple claims. In this particular example, there's only 3 or 4 fields, but you can have as many fields as you want. We're using a simple SharePoint form. We're not using InfoPath in this case, but you certainly could if you wanted. They can be as complex or as simple as you want. There's a lot of flexibility there. And it can be put in from anywhere, of course. It's online, so they don't necessarily have to be sitting at their desk at the company. And we're giving managers the ability to sort these claims by department, by claimant, by time period. Having them all in a list like that historically gives us a lot of visibility on the data that we need to make certain decisions. And the same data can be pushed through to other applications as well, or pulled to other applications as well. If you have perhaps a financial application that has a bit of business intelligence happening on it, that looks at overall expenditures, then you'll probably want to link up that system with this one so that it can leverage the information as it comes through. The way that it actually works is that you have 2 independent lists. You've got one up here at the top that we're calling requests, where the expense claims go through. And we have a separate list that you see there at the bottom called approvers, where an appropriate approver is chosen based on the amount that is being claimed and the department that is being applied to. It's a simple example, but it shows how you can cross-reference this kind of information. You can start routing claims based on real-time information being submitted by the claimants themselves. Approvers also have the ability to archive these claims for future reference if they want to. If it's a particularly expensive one, then they might want to track it in a separate list. Or they could even forward it to other departments or managers higher up the chain for approval. So we can accommodate hierarchical, multi-tiered approval logic as well. The managers themselves receive notifications like the one you see at the bottom of the screen here by email with information that we've pulled from the claim form that was submitted, and perhaps from other areas of the business as well. If we want to give the managers running totals on what's been expensed so far for this particular department, that's the kind of information that we can pass through. Okay, the last one that we'll look at, and I'll give you a little walkthrough of what this solution feels like from an end user perspective as well, but the last one we'll look through is leave requests. Leave requests are a really good choice for automation because they represent a high volume of work, a high volume workflow, because of course everybody in the business needs leave at some point, whether it's holidays or it's sick leave. You're going to have a certain amount of requests per person everywhere in the business. So there's a lot of opportunity there for efficiency gain. It has a high cost in man-hours. It takes a lot of time to process all of these requests, and there's usually a high volume of electronic and even paper-based forms associated with it. There's another risk too, and that is that managers may be giving or granting leave requests for periods that overlap or are inconvenient to the business. So for example, you might have the company undergoing an audit and the chief financial officer happens to be on holiday, or you're delivering a particularly high value project and your senior technical resource is not around, they're overseas. Being able to view at a glance who is already on leave and how that corresponds to important dates in the business calendar reduces the risk that people will be granted leave that is inconvenient. So the first thing we're going to do is convert these paper-based forms to electronic forms. We'll replace all the faxes and paperwork with simple online forms like the ones you've seen so far. And we're also going to connect the HR system to the finance system. We're going to do that so that we can avoid people in the payroll department having to update leave balances for each employee as that leave is granted. So we're going to reduce the amount of data entry and we're going to reduce the amount of forms. And automating that process will raise the efficiency dramatically. It's going to save us a lot of time, and I'm going to show you some numbers around that in a second. We're also going to manage the holiday calendar to avoid those overlaps that we talked about. And before I show you that, let's look at the cost breakdown here. If we figure an hour per request, and that would include the employee making the request, filling out the form, whatever is involved, perhaps following up with the manager after a period of time, or the manager going back to the requester for additional information, the manager submitting the approval, making sure that it's processed, and perhaps some data entry on the part of the finance department to accommodate that change in leave balance. If you figure an average employee will make at least 5 of those requests a year, and I think that's pretty conservative, you've got maybe 500 employees in your company being paid an average of $30 per hour, you're looking at $75,000 per year on what is essentially paperwork. So that's a reasonable chunk of money. And if we automate that, your 1 hour per request goes down to about 15 minutes. Basically, all that's happening is that users are filling out an online form that are only a few fields in length, and the manager approves or rejects it using the same online system. And if we do that, and it does go down to 15 minutes, we're looking at under 20 grand now. So it's a 75% reduction in just that one business process cost. Even if we look at that 1 hour per manual request and we cut that in half down to 30 minutes, we're still looking at a 50% cost reduction. So these numbers are the kinds of things that make it easy to get this kind of solution implemented. And the beauty of it is that if you start with something like this, like a leave request solution, and you can demonstrate that it'll pay for itself in the first year or two that you own it, not only do you have an automated leave request solution, but you now have the tools necessary to create the automation solutions that you might want to roll out to other business processes in HR or even to other departments. We've got a few more minutes left, so what I'm going to do is show you what that leave request process looks like, at least initially, from the end user perspective. So there's our leave calendar. It's currently blank. We have a library of requests that have already been processed. And as an end user, I'm just going to go into this list and add another request. So it identifies who I am automatically. I can choose what kind of leave I'm applying for. And in this case, I'm going to choose annual leave, just typical holiday time. And I'm going to specify a date range. As soon as I submit that, it kicks off a business process that starts notifying managers and notifies me. As you can see, I've already got an OCS notification letting me know that that leave request has now been received and is being processed. And as the manager, I've got a little window here on the manager's email inbox. I've received an email letting us know that the request has come through. It's giving me some information that it's pulled from the form, and it's also letting me know how much leave time is left for that particular user. So you remember I talked earlier about how we connect these systems up to other business data within the company. Well, this one is checking the finance system to see how many leave hours this person has left in their bank. And as the manager, I can click and respond to the request. I can approve or reject it and enter in some commentary if I'd like. And I can also just respond to the email itself. So I don't need to be connected to SharePoint. I can be anywhere that I'm receiving email and put in my response and a little bit of comments and send that through. And that'll be processed by the system. While we're waiting for that to happen, I'll show you what we've got in the way of reporting as well. We might want to see as a manager where our business process automation is taking place. So how many workflows we have broken down by site. We might want to see a list of any overdue workflows that are outstanding. And we might want to see what kind of performance we're getting for the different processes that we're automating. If we're looking at the leave request workflow, for example, and we say, well, hold on, the average runtime is 25 minutes, which is actually pretty good. But if that's faster, or I should say slower than we wanted, we can drill in to each of these processes, and we can start to get an action-by-action report of how long everything is taking and how people are responding. So we can see here that for the leave request solution, we have an average response time of about 3 minutes. And Brett Campbell is the manager that's been responding. So far he's approved one, and we've got one still pending. And in fact, there it is there. There's our notification letting us know that it's been approved. And if we go back up to our leave calendar, then we should see, yeah, there it is there. So we can see at a glance when this person is going to be absent. So what does all this mean? Well, first of all, we're pretty sure now that HR is a really good place to start for automating business processes, mainly because of the high volume of workflows and people involved in those processes. It allows us to lower overall costs in the business associated with these HR processes and raise the efficiency and quality that we're delivering. It allows us to minimize the risk associated, both financial and effort-related risk. And it allows us to reinforce legislative compliance as well as internal compliance and governance as well. And we've shown that new hires or new employees joining the company, expense claims and leave requests are easy targets for automation, and they provide a pretty broad impact for change. What do I think the next step should be? Well, think about 3 problem processes that you've got in HR. They may be 1 or 2 that we talked about today. There may be entirely new processes that we haven't covered, but either way, they can be automated with SharePoint and with Nintex workflow. And once you've identified those processes, contact a local Nintex partner to talk about a proof of concept and maybe an implementation. You'll be very surprised how little effort and how little money is involved in a solution like this. Finally, if you'd like some more information, then of course our website, www.nintex.com, is a good place to start. And if you're looking for something a little bit more technical, connect.nintex.com is our online source for things like forum posts, downloads, white papers, all manner of technical help. We have a huge community of Nintex users online there, and it's moderated and contributed to by our Nintex staff. Both our development and our support teams make frequent posts and answer questions there as well. Okay, let's take a few minutes for Q&A. We have a couple minutes left here. Just bear with me while I check out some of our questions here. Oh, here's a good one. Can you attach a source document to a claim? Yeah, absolutely. So when you fill out an action, when you complete an action, now you have the ability to attach documents to the action itself, and it's tracked throughout the process. Okay, that's all the questions I've got logged here. The next one to look out for, the public webinar coming next month, is called Nintex Analytics 2010, All About Analytics, and it's going to be presented by our VP of Technology, Mike Fitzmaurice, and it's going to happen between August 9th and 10th, or if you're in the Seattle time zone, then late at night on the 8th. So for more information on that one, and to register for that event, check out www.nintex.com/events, and we will see you next month. Thanks for coming.